Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. This is live stream number 954. Got to point out, if you're not overly familiar with this show, it's super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and normally we will take a first look at a game. Every once in a while, I'll do a live review. But usually it's a first look, and that's what we'll be doing tonight. I will be diving in and taking a first look at Die, the role-playing game from Rowan, Rook, and Decard. So stay tuned. I will be jumping on in to take a peek at this in just a bit. So I should mention, if you are tuning in because you're interested in the live first look at Die, the RPG, we do tackle the tabletop gaming news first around here. So it'll probably be about 35, maybe 40 minutes before we start that first look. So in the meantime, as I said, if you're watching live, just kick back, relax, put your feet up. I know it's Tuesday, the week's just getting started, but I'm sure you're already working hard. Be good to yourself. Now, if you happen to watch this 30 minutes or more after the show has ended, there will be timestamps. So you can actually jump ahead if you want to skip the tabletop gaming news. If you're impatient, even though there's actually always cool tabletop gaming news on every show. I get it. Some people just want to get into the first look. So there are timestamps. They are in the show notes. Now, depending on what device you might happen to be watching this on, you might actually find those timestamps right there in the timeline in front of you. Like I said, all depends on the device you happen to be watching. But when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, you should swing on over to thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live show. So that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways that keeps some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours before you can take part in chat. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, maybe there's something about Die, the role-playing game you want a closer peek at, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight was the Motor City Madman himself. Yes, the Madman is with us. He's one of our chat moderators. Kevin King is here, Stray Kismet, Roger Prudhomme, Kev Reed, who I believe might be a first-time visitor in chat. Make yourself at home. Thanks for joining us. Flaming Heron, another of our chat moderators, this time from across the pond, is hanging out. Let's see who else we've got. Agent Especial is with us, I believe, still from the Amazon. That's pretty impressive. Kathy Evans is here, as is William Arenz. I think I've said hello to everyone. So chat is off and running already. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. So before we jump into the tabletop gaming news, do want to mention earlier today, Funko launched their Pop Yourself experience. Now, you might recall when I came back from San Diego Comic-Con, about a week or so after I got back, I received this. That's right. It's me as a pop, along with my two cats. Sorry, you're getting some glare there. Let me kind of tilt that down a little bit. So now you can go and pop yourself. And I am going to be giving away a code to one lucky viewer after I do the tabletop gaming news, and you will be able to go and get your very own Pop Yourself. Yes. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to give it away. I don't know if I'm just going to do random dice roll or something. Probably. I think that's probably the most fair. Just taking a guess. All right, so let's jump on into the news, because coming from Board and Dice this fall is Nucleum. Here's the skinny. When Elsa von Frühlingfeld presented her invention to King Friedrich Augustus II of Saxony, people thought it was trickery. She used the recent isolated element uranium to heat up a jar of water and used the resulting steam to power an engine that kept the uranium active via a process she called atomization. Her device, the Nucleum, ushered in a new era of energy and prosperity over the next decades. Saxony went from a minor regional power to the hub of European science and engineering. Now, a generation later, factories are still hungry for more power, demanding bigger and more nucleums to be built, more uranium imported from the nearby country of Bohemia, and railroads and power lines built across the country to carry the tamed power of the atoms to Saxony's great cities. Inventors, engineers, and industrialists flocked to the Saxon court, vying to be the leader in this new industrial revolution. Nucleum is a heavy Euro board game in which players take the role of industrialists trying to succeed during the economic and technological boom of the 19th century Saxony. Wouldn't it be just of 19th century Saxony? Fueled by the invention and spread of the Nucleum, a nuclear reactor. Players earn victory points by developing their networks, building and powering urban buildings, securing contracts, and meeting milestones, randomized endgame goals. Each player also gets unique asymmetric technologies, giving them special powers when unlocked. Gameplay is continuous. Players take turns one after another with no rounds or phases. Nucleum is for 1 to 4 players, 18 ages, I should say. What? Can't read tonight. Boy, those eyes just are, they're not focusing right. What's going on here? Ages 14 and up. I don't know why I started saying 18 and up. Yes, there's a lot of nudity in Nucleum. No. Anyway, it is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, plays in 60 to 150 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $70 when it lands in stores this November. Sounds kind of interesting. Although I have to chuckle where it's like, oh, 19th century Saxony. And it's like, yeah, okay. How come they're the ones discovering this? And let's be honest here. It's not as if people understood the problems with radiation even early in the 20th century. Check out the award-winning book, The Radium Girls, if you want to learn about some very horrible missteps with radium. Ugh. Jeez. Anyway, this looks kind of interesting, and this is going to be a heavyweight game. Board and Dice are pretty well known for pretty heavy Euro style board games. So this is on the horizon. So let's see. Jack Hanks is with us in chat. Welcome aboard, Jack. Good to see you once again. Let's talk about some role-playing game news because OSR RPG and Exalted Funeral have teamed to release Outcast Silver Raiders. Here's the scoop. Outcast Silver Raiders is a distillation of the OSR in service of an occult medieval vision. The rules work within a familiar universal framework established by the world's most popular role-playing game and are compatible with thousands of published supplements. Play is fast and simple, focused on player ingenuity and exploration. People who have never played a tabletop role-playing game pick up the rules quickly, and experienced gamers appreciate their elegance. If you love the OSR or 5e, you're going to love this game. If you don't know what the OSR is, well, this is probably a great place to start. The Mythic North is a full-size setting book with over 50 hand-drawn maps, 6 competing and interwoven factions, 10 towns full of quests and secrets, and 88 unique encounters. Mostly characters, not monsters. By rolling a few dice, referees can combine the places and encounters to create thousands of hours of emergent gameplay without ever sacrificing player agency. Occult means that magic in the world is secret, dangerous, and somewhat unknowable. This is not a fantasy setting where magic is commonplace. This world mirrors our own, where magic is forbidden and strange. Potions are rarer than crow's teeth. Wizards are terrible beings of legend. Monsters are unique and frightening. Medieval means that the world is a fictional mirror of medieval society. The church reigns supreme and infests all aspects of life. The gentry stand above the lower classes as superhuman, assured of their rightful dominance by a judgmental god. Medicine means leeches and bleeding. Education is for the rich. Might makes right. The restrictions of this era breed conflict, and conflict creates great stories. Outcast Silver Raiders is what the televangelists, the hack investigative journalists, and the grasping Hollywood producers imagined when they caused a satanic panic around RPGs in the 80s. Demons, darkness, sacrifice, blood spilling over cracked altars and desecrated chapels. Players portray brutal warriors, clever rogues, and conniving sorcerers who reject the barbaric theocracy of medieval society to seek fortune and glory as outcasts beyond the reach of lords or God. The box set for Outcast Silver Raiders is available right now through Exalted Funeral for an MSRP of $100. And it includes 3 books. You're seeing the books right now. So we've got the Player's Guide, I think it's like Game Master's Guide is what it's called. Then we got the setting book. Oh, I'm sorry. Referee's Compendium. Fancy, fancy. But I got to say, this seems pretty interesting. That's why I'm sharing the news. And I kind of like how it's like, yeah, so this role-playing game, this is what all those people who freaked out about the satanic panic back in the day would have really freaked out about. This is what, stuff you're delving into, fictionally, of course. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist as well. Our friend Shen from Taiwan is with us in chat. Kevin R. Smith is also hanging out. Mentions Marie Curie made the first horrible missteps with radium. Was she the first, or wouldn't you consider her husband? Because he died first, didn't he? I know, I'm trying to access the old memory banks. I thought her husband died from radiation poisoning, and then she was sick and stumbled out into the street. I think she got run over by a wagon or something like that. I wasn't there, so I can't tell you for sure. Moving right along. Following a very successful Kickstarter, Pinnacle Entertainment Group has released the Pine Box Middle School Supplements for Savage Worlds in PDF. Here's what I know. You're young and adventurous, and no matter what adults say, the monsters are real. Welcome to Pine Box, Texas. This setting is meant to evoke the frightening adventures of staples like Stranger Things, Goosebumps, The Goonies, and It. Evil is afoot, and it's up to a group of scrappy young kids to set things right. But this isn't a nostalgic trip back in time. Modern technology and modern problems are in the mix to complicate the balance between family, school, and horror. The 210-page core book offers everything you need to create your own starting sixth grader. That's kind of funny. Yes, I'd like to create my own starting sixth grader, please. Roll some dice up. Complete with new hindrances, edges, and even a section for family generation, so you know who you need to con to get a ride to the site of your next ghost hunt. There are rules getting around Pine Box and surrounding Golden County as a kid with little more than your trusty bike, navigating the strange unreliability of cell phone signals in rural Texas, using soft weapons such as water guns and firecrackers to distract and disrupt your opponents, and even for dabbling in the arcane via dangerous but powerful ritual magic. There's an adventure generator to help create your own scenarios for the heroes to play through. The descent into the Inferno plot point campaign takes kids from 6th grade all the way through 8th in the pursuit of a dangerous mastermind and his strange undead abominations that threaten to unleash an army of horrors on Earth. Also included is a full curriculum of savage tales that can be used as part of your own saga or in conjunction with the plot point campaign to add more drama to your group's experience. Right now, you can pre-order the physical 210-page book with PDF for an MSRP of $39.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $19.99. Gotta be honest, I do not have a release date for the physical book just yet, but the PDF actually arrived on Drive-Thru RPG yesterday. So there is that. I was waiting for the madman to comment as Sarah D is saying hello. So Sarah D says, I just want to point out that the Funko Pop Yourself includes a band hammer as an accessory. So the madman says, waiting for his Kickstarter copy of Pine Box Middle School. See, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be Pine Box, Texas Middle School, because that's on the cover. But everywhere I see it referred to, it's referred to as Pine Box Middle School. So I don't know. So the madman says it takes place in the same location as East Texas University. I knew that. I was going to mention that, but the madman beat me to the punch. As Kevin says, so the madman's saying it's best to homeschool in that town. So I had to chuckle where they're talking about like kids riding bikes and it's supposed to be modern era. It's like, yeah, right. It's like kids can't be bothered to walk 3 blocks to go to like a McDonald's. Can we get a ride? Just talking to my nephew about that over the weekend. It was his 22nd birthday. And he was talking about, you know, why is his generation the way they are? Like, kind of wimpy, you know? And I said, well, for one, you don't do anything. You don't go anyplace. It's like, God forbid it'd be like, oh, we have to walk a mile somewhere. And back in the summer in Chicago, when we were, you know, high school kids, it was not unusual for us to walk about 7 miles to the lake and back in a day. and we just had a blast. So anyway, Flaming Heroes asks, do kids even go outside unless they have to? And Kevin points out, probably not. They have way more video games than we did. Oh, yes, and way more entertaining video games as well. My final news piece, now available in print and PDF, is the second release in the Cults of RuneQuest series from Chaosium Inc. It's The Lightbringers. And here's the dope. Challenge your foes, fulfill your fate. Cults of RuneQuest, The Lightbringers, the player's guide to the gods of the storm. This book covers the mythology of the Lightbringer pantheon of gods and provides mechanics for each of their cults to create your RuneQuest adventure. Cults of RuneQuest, The Lightbringers features 19 cults, including Orlanth, the storm god, Chalana Arroy, the goddess of compassion, Landbril, the god of thieves, Eseres, the god of communication, Humket, the god of death and war, and many more. You'll find new and complementary rules to use each of the 19 included cults to create brand new RuneQuest adventures. Details, skills, passions, spirit magic, and rune magic that these cults offer, which includes new spells and new cult-specific skills. Embody the power of your god with rules for how your adventurer can grow into a god talker, rune priestess, or even a mighty rune lord. Cults of RuneQuest, The Lightbringers details the unique organization, history, and nature of each cult, and covers the history of the Lightbringer pantheon, mythology filled with combat, heroism, reckless deeds, and honor in the face of impossible odds. The 168-page hardcover is available now, carries an MSRP of $39.99, or you can grab the PDF over at Drive-Thru RPG for $19.99. And both the Lightbringers and the Earth Goddesses are in transit right now. In fact, strangely enough, Chaosium Inc. put in the order to their distributor like over a week ago. And normally I get an email saying, oh, hey, we've placed this order for you. And within a couple of days, I get another email from that distributor saying, hey, we've shipped out your order. It was like a week, hadn't heard anything. So I shot this distributor an email asking, what's going on with this order? I know this is available. And they're like, yeah, it's shipping out tomorrow. It's like, okay. It's like, bet you forgot it. I bet that's what happened. 245 Trioxin is hanging with the gang tonight. Good to see ya. All right, so that is it for the news portion tonight. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG or Dungeon Masters Guild or Storyteller's Vault, what have you, one of the One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda to keep the old talking box lubricated. And thankfully, there are quite a few of you out there who use the banner ads and or stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang. So thank you, everybody. Really go a long way to help keep thegaminggang.com around, because as I point out from time to time, don't do Patreon, don't do Kickstarters, none of that. I try not to reach into people's pockets constantly like some outlets do. Alrighty, as I mentioned, last week I talked about, I was going to kind of touch on a subject I don't think enough game reviewers are upfront about. So I'm going to do that in just a moment. But if you're tuning in a little bit late, earlier today, Funko launched their Pop Yourself experience, which I took part in San Diego Comic-Con and got my own personal pop here. And I have a code to give away for one lucky viewer to be able to pop themselves. So let's do this. Chime in chat if you would like to be included in the contest. I'll give you a couple of moments to chime on in, and then we will see how many of you there are. Just reaching around to get some dice. I should point out, if you are outside the United States, you do have to pay for shipping. Well, even in the US, you'll have to pay for shipping. That is not included in the code. All right, come on. Got all these dice later. There it is. I'm like, where's my dice bag? All right, so the Madman says they want in. So that's one. All right. Come on, folks. Chime in. Chime in. Jack Hanks had pointed out RuneQuest looks awesome. They had the box set. Haven't gotten around to reading it yet. All right. Roger Perdome's in. 245 Trioxin. Testy Trekkie is with us. I don't think I said hello to Testy Trekkie, so that's 4. All right, come on, about another minute to jump in here. So I noticed Sarah D pointed out that there's a banhammer, but she's not chiming in that she wants to be part of it. Guess she just doesn't want a chance at winning the pop. All right, a few more seconds. I guess we only have 4 people interested. Well, that's okay. That's all right. Let me dig out a 4-sided die. See what we get. Now watch. Now I'm going to have to search around to find a 4-sided die. Sarah D says, she's just here for the entertainment. I must have 50 dice in this bag. And there we go. I was going to say, finally, a 4-sided die. All right, so it looks like there's 4 folks in chat. All right, here we go. Number 4, who is the last one to chime in? Roger Perdome. All right, Roger, what you need to do, yes, D4 Caltrop. Either or. And yes, Tessie Trekkie mentioned the same thing. So Roger Perdome was the last in. He was number 4. I just rolled a 4. Roger, shoot me an email to Jeff McAleer at The Gaming Gang, and I will give you the code. I have a news piece up on thegaminggang.com. It has the link for you to go to and everything else. So fire that email off, and I will send along the code. And you have to use the code by, if I remember correctly, it's August 29th. So there you have it. There you've got it. All righty then. So as I had mentioned, some people kind of think being a reviewer is super easy. Well, it depends on how you approach it. If you approach it as, and there are people out there who are like this, because I talk to publishers all the time. There are outlets who, they approach somebody at a convention or whatever from a company, and it's gimme, 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 gimme. that the whole purpose of being at that convention is to load up on as many review copies of things that they probably don't even really give a shit about half of the stuff, but they got a review copy of it. And a lot of those people really don't think about any sort of responsibility to anyone but themselves when they do reviews. Now, I'm not naming names. I'm not picking on any particular people out there, but I know this for a fact because I hear about it from publishers. And I'll encounter publishers I talk to for the first time at a convention, and in the conversation at some point they're like, so aren't you going to ask me for like review copies of stuff? I'm like, well, that's up to you. I'm not here to like hit you up for anything. So there is a responsibility, I feel, to both the publisher as well as you, the viewer, the public, the reader, when I do a review of something. So I understand, especially because I work with, there's a good number of smaller publishers out there, smaller companies out there that I've worked with for years. And I understand if I badmouth something of theirs and it's not a legitimate gripe, if I didn't pay attention to a rule or something, and that's one of the reasons why I've said it time and time again, I tend to be slower on getting board game reviews out there because we play them 3 times, because it is not unusual to play something the first time and have the rules wrong and be sitting there going, wow, this game sucks. And then be like, oh, wait a second. We missed this rule, or we applied this rule incorrectly. And then suddenly it's like, oh, hey, you know what? This game's actually pretty good. If I only played a game once and just went with a review off of that, that could hurt that company. So it used to be a lot of companies were fine with getting a negative review. They figured, any publicity's good publicity. Not so much anymore. Most companies, if it's going to be a negative review, they prefer you to not say anything. And I think part of that is because they feel they've probably got some other reviewers out there who tend to give everything the thumbs up, which we see that from some outlets as well. So I think that's probably the reason why we don't see as many publishers who are cool with a negative review, because unless it's like Wizards of the Coast or, bigger companies, if I'm going to do a negative review of something, I let that publisher know. As far as like D&D stuff, no, I don't reach out to their PR company to tell them, because I know that my less than stellar review of something is not going to really negatively affect them. So, because there are plenty of people out there who they're just like, Jeff doesn't like Dungeons and Dragons. He doesn't like the game. Far from it. It's just, I don't like stuff that's, under par, subpar that's been released. So I feel I have a responsibility to publishers, but I have a larger responsibility to you and the people who visit the website, people who like read our articles and news pieces and things like that. That is where my biggest responsibility lies. And I feel that I never want to mislead anybody who's watching a video or visiting the website. I never want to give them, like, one of the reasons why I don't do tons of Kickstarter previews anymore. Now, I'll do some from time to time. I'm actually going to do one for Acheron, for the new Broncolonia bestiary that's going to be hitting Kickstarter next month. In fact, I've got the files. I've started looking through the PDF, and I've got a couple of other Broncolonia books that I haven't covered, so I'll be sharing some videos of those in the near future. But one of the reasons why I don't do a ton of Kickstarter previews is because too many people look at those and they're like, oh, it's a review. And I refuse to call them a review unless it's something that I get that is like, oh, well, this is a production copy. This is good to go. This is what's going to retail or Kickstarter backers or what have you. And a lot of times when somebody's being paid to do a review, and I do not do Kickstarter videos for free. Sorry. One of the ways that I, support this channel and the website, keeping it around, it's there, it's no freebies. But a lot of times somebody's getting paid, they tend to be far more complimentary than if they weren't getting paid. So, but I feel personally, my biggest responsibility is to you, the viewer, to be honest with you, to shoot straight with you. If you've been watching my videos for a while, I'm not here to bullshit you. So I don't think enough people in this industry, covering this industry, I should say, looks at it the same way. I think there are far too many people who cover the industry because they think they're going to get rich doing so. Tessie Trekkie says, also, the Household RPG big box set is huge and lovely. I think I need to marry it. His wife is unhappy with this idea. I wish I could get a shot at taking a peek at Household. I'm trying to remember who that's from. I forget. Anyway, so there is that. But I know many of you are holding out because they're like, come on, man, let's take a look at Die the role-playing game. Well, we are. We're going to take a first look right after a brief intermission.
Music to the ears of the hungry. The sizzle of a mouth-watering hamburger. Fresh, lean beef, done to a golden brown, couched in a soft bun, and garnished to taste. Man, that's hunger heaven. And you'll feel like you're heaven sent when you get one at our refreshment stand.
Hi, I'm Chili Dilly, the personality pickle. Packed in a jar for the freshest flavor. Served cold in a sack for you to savor. So dainty to eat, no muss, no fuss. An ideal snack for all of us. Crisp, tender, and tasty with a bit of spice. Buy one now. Taste how nice. Snack bar clerks will knock themselves silly, speeding your order for a real Chili Dilly.
Hiya, hiya, hiya. They're shrimply delicious. Hiya, hiya, hiya. You'll go for that mouth-watering, taste-tempting, meaty shrimp mixture all wrapped up in a crispy noodle jacket. It's a treat you can't beat. So come on, join the folks that are getting fresh, crispy, Flavo shrimp rolls now at the snack bar. They're shrimply delicious.
Wilkins decaffeinated coffee lets you sleep.
Not me. I don't drink it.
It lets everybody sleep.
What's this? The cat monster setting a trap for Mighty Mouse. And the bait? Post Sugar Crisp. How can Mighty Mouse get it?
I love Post Sugar Crisp. So do my friends.
For breakfast, it's dandy. For snacks, it's so handy.
They're wholesome wheat puffs covered with sugar and honey. That's why it's fun to eat Sugar Crisp, morning, noon, or night. Now everybody, better for breakfast, better for snacks. just a little bit better. Those are the facts about post-sugar crisp.
Most any cereal is fine with me, as long as you spell it P-O-S-T. 'Cause all Post cereals happen to be
Just a little better.
a little bit better. A little bit better than any other cereal happens to be.
For breakfast, it's dandy. For snacks, it's so handy.
Yes, take a big bite out of that personality pickle. Flaming Heron says, I don't care about your personality. Do you taste good? Kevin R. Smith also points out that the aging film has not been kind to those burgers. I don't think those burgers looked too great when that film was fresh and spanking new. Tessie Trekkie points out household is from Two Little Mice. No wonder it didn't pop to mind. All right. So tonight we are going to be diving on in and taking a first look at Die, the role-playing game from Rowan, Rook, and Decard. It's written by Keiron Gillen with artwork provided by Stephanie Hans. This 408-page hardcover is available now. In fact, it was selling very, very well at Gen Con when I was over at the Rowan, Rook, and Decard exhibit area. Carries an MSRP of $55, or you can grab just the PDF for $25. I do not believe the PDF is available at Drive-Thru RPG. You actually have to go to the Rowan, Rook, and Decard website. So let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got Die RPG. Die RPG, I hate you, die! No, I think it's actually referred to as Die, the role-playing game. All right. So before we jump on in and start taking a peek, do want to mention that the fine folks over at Rowan, Rook, and Decard were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. And these days, it's important that you know that. Also, I think there's some adventure stuff in here, so keep that in mind if you are a player. You're hoping that your game master is going to pick up Die, the role-playing game, or maybe they already have. They just haven't started running it yet. So there could be some spoilers. I don't know. We are not going to look at each and every page in the book, but I do want to give you a very, very good feel for what Die, the role-playing game is all about. And I'll be the first to point out, I don't know very much about it, except for what I learned from its creator, Keiron Gillen, during my interview over at Gen Con. So let's take a look at the back here. You're dragged into a treacherous fantasy world made from your own fears, doubts, and desires. There's only one way to escape, but with limitless adventure within your grasp, would you even want to? In Die, the role-playing game, you play a group of authentically flawed people from the real world who gather together to play a game but become trapped in a magical realm. What are they prepared to sacrifice to escape? What are they prepared to sacrifice to stay? Built by Keiron Gillen and Stephanie Hans, the creative duo behind the comic of the same name, this 408-page book gives you all the tools you need to build a bespoke world out of the obsessions and dreams of your friends. 5 unique character classes drawn from the comic give players access to powers beyond their imagining, bargaining with gods, augmenting their bodies with strange technologies, bending the laws of chance, twisting minds with a word, or channeling their deepest emotions into magical violence. The Game Master isn't left out. They get their very own class, the Master, who manipulates the rules of the game that the players are trapped in. Die, the role-playing game, has everything you need to play or run the game aside from a handful of dice, some friends, and a burning desire to get lost in a hell of your own creation. Well, So Tessie Trekkie says, every time I hear Rowan, Rook, and Decard, I think of one thing. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time like tears in the rain. William Arendt said burgers, pickles, shrimp rolls, and Mighty Mouse hawking post-sugar crisps. Now that's an entertaining intermission. All right. So let's take a peek here. So I should point out that this is based off of a comic book. And as we can see, it looks like we're going to get some of the opening of the comic. Yeah, just a few pages. Looks like, what, 4 or 6 pages? What is Die? Die is the comic book series by Keiron Gillen and Stephanie Hans, where a group of real-world, deeply flawed adults are transported to a fantasy world via a predatory, sinister role-playing game. There, they're transformed into paragons, each of whom is a warped take on the core fantasy role-playing classes. In this world, they get to confront how their lives are diverted from their youthful fantasies to confront their darker sides and buried secrets. They generally cause trouble. It's been jokingly described as goth Jumanji. It is a portal fantasy for adults and is available from all good bookshops. Each of these visitors, so talking about the RPG, each of these visitors is transformed into their own unique versions of the iconic paragons of the series. Dictators, break hearts with words in a blood fountaining out of people's mouths way. Fools rush in with a smile on their face, knowing if it slips, they'll be torn apart. Emotion knights know if they feel their passion strong enough, fear, hate, loathing, whatever they choose, they can decapitate gods. Godbinders haggle with and bully the divine to get their miracles done cheap. And Neo sneaks into a Prussian dragon's lair to steal enough fair gold to power up their techno weaponry enough to kill the bastard thing. Even masters, shuffling reality, knowing if their cheating gets caught, they'll have to suffer torment for breaking the rules. Alrighty then. A note on tone. In Die, you create a bunch of real-world people and then drop them into a fantasy world where the recesses of their inner lives are externalized and confronted or succumbed to. Old-school bullies as literal ogres. Distant, disapproving parent figures are distant, disapproving archmage mentors. That lost love is the elf regent promising you happiness as long as you abandon reality and stay in this fantasy realm. This can be a serious game of personal trauma and loss, akin to the darker recesses of Die the comic. It can also be lighter, about real-world people dealing with the ludicrousness of a fantasy world. Die can be a game about an adult finally coming to terms with their identity, and it can be about the nerdy teenager absolutely delighted to be able to throw fireballs. It can be all of the above. If I'm running it, I move freely between all poles. Your group decides what your game looks like. Make it yours. So we get, looks like this is kind of conversationally presented. So Wraithing is with us, says, couldn't sleep, almost 2 a.m. we're there at, but I remembered Tuesday Gaming Gang, yay. Well, welcome aboard. I know you usually watch on Memorex, so good to have you pop in live. So we've got our main stats: strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, charisma. I think we're pretty used to those. Stats are represented by a number between 0 and 4. Average person's score on each is a 2. A stat of 3 is on par with the most competent people on Earth. A stat of 4 is significantly better than anyone on Earth. All right. So what is our core mechanic here? Is it a dice pool? I'm getting a feeling it might be a dice pool. Okay, the core mechanic, in short, collect a number of dice equal to the stat most relevant to the task at hand. There we go. Dice pool. 6-sided dice. Are we talking sixes? It looks like 6-siders here. Any advantages? Add a dice for each. Wouldn't it be die? A singular die is a die, not dice. Any disadvantages? Remove a dice for each. Roll each dice showing, see, once again, it should be die. What's going on here? Shen from Taiwan said they got this rulebook from Kickstarter. They love this one. So each roll of 4 or higher is a success. If the game master has set a difficulty for the task, remove that number of successes. If any successes remain, you succeed. If any remaining die is a 6 or higher, each can be used to activate any relevant special ability. And then it gives us in detail the core mechanic. So it looks as if, as far as ranges, very abstract. Melee range, close, medium, far. Actions. An action is anything you can do under pressure in combat, like climbing a wall, picking a lock, casting a spell, and more. One common action is an attack. Gives us a breakdown of the attacks. Multiple successes. So we have advancement. It's a classical convention in role-playing games that characters get more powerful the longer they're in the game. Die is written to work entirely well without any character advancement at all. For a one-off scenario, characters have plenty of toys to have fun with. Die as presented in Chapter 5, Rituals, runs in 2 to 4 sessions and isn't really suited for the full Die the campaign advancement. If players are hungry for more abilities, you can add advancement to a short-form game of Die like so. When your players have achieved a major goal, the Paragon's dice burst into life and they gain new abilities. As the Paragons are overcoming their struggles, their dice are attuning themselves to their owners and vice versa. This is a leveling up moment. So based on your class, it indicates how you're going to advance. So Kevin says, I think dice has slowly been becoming the singular for over 10 years. I remember reading that one of the dictionaries had it as an acceptable use back in the early 2000s. Kevin also points out I was as puzzled by this development as you. Yeah, I don't. What, suddenly singular and plural are different? What? So taking a look through this, I'm kind of curious because I know I've had people comment about this before. As far as games that take on kind of a singular note, I guess we'll say, where it's not a game that's designed for long-term play, right? So as we're seeing here, it seems like Die the role-playing game is more designed for a handful of sessions. And I'm kind of curious about that. Does that appeal to a lot of people out there? Or, I'm asking those of you watching live, and if you happen to be watching this on Memorex, by all means, please comment in the comment section. I'm kind of curious. And here's the weird thing. I think older gamers tend to be more interested in longer campaigns than younger gamers. Now, I could be absolutely wrong with this, but I kind of seem to think, because most of the audience for the Gaming Gang Dispatch, we're an older crowd. I'm not necessarily saying that, everybody's got to be in their 50s to watch this show, but I don't think outside of, I know my best friend Elliot's daughter watches from time to time, and she's in her teens. I think she's a senior this year in high school, maybe a junior. But I think 30-year-old plus role players out there aim more for long campaigns, and younger players just want to have like a short campaign so they can move on and create new characters for something else. Tessie Trekkie says, I'm partial to games that have a built-in campaign arc, not necessarily set length, but more a somewhat structured campaign framework. So we've got some of the various different character classes here. So the Emotion Knight. These orders of knights are the world's greatest warriors, each devoted to one of the 8 sacred emotions, whether it be joy, hate, or fear. They feel it. They can use it to fuel the power of their sentient arcane weapons. When consumed by their sacred sensation, they're incomparable warriors, capable of miraculous feats. Nothing can stand against their blades, armies, mountains, not even ideas. They can defeat anything except the passion which drives them. I will say this does seem rather interesting. This is not your typical same old, same old. It looks as if it's very rules light. Usually games that have a dice pool tend to be relatively rules light. So we got the Neo. Adventurers love gold. With their propensity for taking anything that isn't nailed down makes them all thieves, which makes the classical fantasy prejudice against rogues a little odd. They're all at it. Why do rogues get the glances? But anyone who's ever met one knows why people are suspicious about the Neo. There's a special kind of gold, and the Neo's magical technology needs to be activated by this every day. If they can't find enough, then all their gifts mean nothing. They can't skip between shadows, dance to the sky, or punch a hole through a fallen's head from half a mile away. Adventurers all want gold, but no one needs it like a Neo. So they're kind of a cyberpunk character, it looks like. Manman says that his Savage Worlds group tends to like to stick to a campaign for about a year and then switch, sometimes back to one we hadn't completed. Tessie Trekkie points out also, with everybody being so busy, it can be easier to get my players to commit to fortnightly games for 3 to 6 months. But that's still a pretty decent length campaign. Like the Madman points out, I believe the Madman's Savage Worlds group gets together every other week. So you're looking at, say your campaign runs a year, that's still 26 sessions. That's a really solid campaign. So these are, still looking at the Neo. So it looks like for each of these classes, we kind of a breakdown of what they are. And they are certainly far more than just rangers and rogues and paladins and things like that, it seems. Far more powerful than that. Well, they are supposed to be paragons. So it says, Godbinder, you don't believe in gods. They exist, obviously. You owe the fire god for that time he burned that fortress, and you've got that favor from the god of the wild when you saved her rainforest. But believe? That's a strong word. You don't believe in gods. You believe in tools, useful tools. Because you think about it, the difference between cleric and demonologist is the same as the one between freedom fighter and terrorist. Or as George Carlin once joked, if firefighters fight fires, do freedom fighters fight freedom? Play a Godbinder if you want to unleash the power of a pantheon of your own design on the world. Barter with your gods for anything you want, for a price. Deal with the awful costs of the deals. So we got our stats, equipment, kind of the style, your look, your contract with a god. So scripture, I guess, are spells. A debt that you would have. Kevin says the Pathfinder group that he's in with a bunch of millennials has been playing the same campaign for a couple of years since they restarted after COVID, but they all often have to skip weeks. Yeah, it's looking like we might have an opportunity to get Masks of Nyarlathotep going with my best friend Elliot and my brother. I don't know if, I wish we could get like at least one more player. Because I ran Masks of Nyarlathotep way back in the day when it first came out with 3 players. But I would like maybe try to get 4. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But it was funny, as I mentioned, if you tuned in late, this past weekend was my nephew Cameron's 22nd birthday. And my brother says to me, hey, in September, my schedule's changing. So if you and Elliot want to play, he was telling me the days he's got off. And I'm like, oh, really? So I guess he kind of wants to play. And as I mentioned before, my brother Greg isn't really, it's the only brother I have, he isn't really a huge gamer, but he will play stuff with us. The master, this is your GM, Anthony Good, is with us. Rating says, because you're playing a character in the die world who's playing a character in the role-playing game, I'm wondering how the game helps players keep the main motivations for the character. Do you know? So the other question I've got is more along the lines of role-playing games that kind of address issues which players may actually have in real life. Be it physical issues, mental issues, emotional issues. I find it unusual. I don't have anything against games that operate with this, but I do find it kind of weird to see some role-playing games where it's sort of like, well, we're gonna tackle autism, and you're like, or something else that I've mentioned from time to time, like Elliot's nephew, who played Call of Cthulhu with us for years, and other games too, is in a wheelchair. He was born with spina bifida. And I can tell you right now, there was never a point in time he ever wanted to role play a character who was in a wheelchair. And I just find it unusual. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just find it kind of unusual that we see a lot of, in fact, there was just a supplement that came out from a third-party publisher for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and it was about running characters who had emotional issues. And I was like, okay. And it actually, the book itself would have like stat blocks for various different ailments. I was like, okay. So Tessie Trekkie says, my table is not a therapy session. I'm happy to avoid content that is traumatic or uncomfortable for my players, but if you want to explore your mental trauma in a game, everyone needs to say yes. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. For most people I have run role-playing games for, as we see, we've got a nice bookmark. Most people want to escape their cares. That's why they're playing role-playing games. They don't necessarily want to role-play another aspect of a challenge that they face in the real world. I mean, that's just me. I just, like I said, I find it unusual. So, I mean, feel free, comment in the chat section. they're watching this after the fact, you want to leave a comment in the comment section, by all means, I welcome it. I guess I'm just so used to playing role-playing games. I shouldn't say playing. I'm the forever GM. Running role-playing games where they tend to be an escape for my players as opposed to ways for them to take a deeper look into issues they may have in their own lives. So we've got some information. This looks like this is Game Master facing. The Master. So it's giving us advice on each of the classes. Yeah, running the Paragons. Who to give the Dictator to? The Dictator is a bard as a horror character. The bard is someone who sings magical songs that alter people's emotional states, either positively or negatively. The Dictator takes that and turns it into something intensely awful. The Dictator includes the most unavoidably adult themes in the game. If given to an immature player who does not understand the seriousness of its possibilities, it can easily be upsetting for all the players, including the Dictator, when they realize they've overstepped social boundaries. I would say, from what we're seeing so far, and I know I'm talking about other things as we do the page through, which I do from time to time, you know me. Hey, at least I'm not mispronouncing any fictional people, places, or things. But this looks like this is a very specific role-playing game. Now, I don't mean that by setting, because this kind of strikes me as you could probably use even, Forgotten Realms and things like that, right? You don't have to come up with your own fantasy location. You could use the planet of Dune, right? But it seems like this is focused at a particular style of play. And as we can see here, this is no doubt not a role-playing game that is aimed at like teenagers and things like that. In fact, the comic book itself, I believe the main characters in the comic are all adults. We're kind of looking back on, missed opportunities in life and things like that. So we have native paragons, the fallen. Die has few constraints. The fallen are one of them. When the personas are dragged away from reality, they find themselves between one world and the next. As they get their bearings, other beings get bearings on them. The fallen lurch forward, hungry, monstrous. This is the first lesson Die teaches you. The fallen want to devour you. They cannot be reasoned with. They can only be stopped. In the comic, Chuck describes them as orcs, as in, they are the creature which you can kill in this game without any ethical worry. It's them or you. Yes, this should make you suspicious. Fallen are most easily defined not by appearance, but by their behavior. They have an overwhelming hunger to consume the persona. If slain, a piece of fair gold may be found in their remains. It looks like we get some spoilers. The fair are rarely seen in any of the worlds of Die, but they're watching. The fair appear as pairs of floating humanoid figures, cyberpunk neon and polished chrome, elves as designed by William Gibson. They are sleek, elegant artificial intelligences, by which we mean they have an intelligence that is so entirely artificial, it isn't fully comprehensible to other beings. Okie doke. I gotta say, this does look pretty cool. Tessie Trekkie asks, is the Dictator a class that is, I force your PC to do what I as another player command? Oh, I would hope not. Man, I would hope not. I mean, that's like breaking one of the core tenets. I don't mean David Tennant, of role-playing games is having one player able to control what another player's character does. I don't know about that. So Raything points out, yes, there is player versus player. Yeah, because I understand it gets to the point where you may have some characters who want to stay in this game world. They want to stay in this fantasy world. And then there are other characters who want to go back to reality. So I think that's why I think that's where some of the, like the player conflict comes into play. So we're getting a bestiary here. And it looks like we've got a lot of our typical fantasy role-playing creatures, but I don't think they're actually the same as you would find, like, say, in the Monster Manual. I think, like, for an example, gargoyles. Well, that gargoyle looks like it's some sort of a clockwork creature. Kind of interesting where it's like good echoes for. So Gorgons are good echoes for victims of sexual violence and abuse, people driven by spite over past misfortune, marginalized people surviving despite terrible conditions. Because remember, supposedly the characters face off against monsters that sort of represent their challenges and conflicts in real life. I gotta say, this is a very unusual and unique role-playing game from what I can see here. But I will also point out, I don't know if this would be a game that I would run. I'm going to read through it. I'm going to review it. Don't worry, everybody. But I'm just pointing out, I don't know if this would be up my alley, which there are role-playing games that just don't click with me that other people absolutely adore. So we've got a campaign. So this is the campaign that was discussed where it should only run maybe, I believe it said, what was it, 2 to 4 sessions? So discussing during the session, ending the session, at the end of an adventure. An adventure is a narrative unit in Die the Campaign. At the end of an adventure, we take stock and ask 2 things. Have the Paragons advanced? And what do they want to do next? And then it says, so why didn't the ritual work? I guess I'm taking a stab in the dark that the player characters need to complete a ritual to return to their homes. So Raything says, I think you'd have to have strong characters who aren't too precious to their players. If you're too emotionally invested, it could become a nasty table to be around. Yikes. Flaming Heron says, not every game has to be what someone loves, but I accept that Jeff will give it a fair and honest review. I will. I will. I certainly will. Kevin King says, this game is for all those White Wolf players in the 90s who have now grown up. Role-play heavy, story over mechanics. There's absolutely nothing wrong with story over mechanics. I can tell you that. Tessie Strike says, yeah, I'm bouncing off this game hard. This seems too much like open up about stuff that's deeply, deeply dramatic. Kevin points out that he wonders if they encourage short campaigns because it's so emotionally draining. Well, and the funny thing is, it's not as if your characters are a reflection of you. I mean, you're creating flawed individuals. They don't have to have your flaws. All right. Well, I will point out there is a good amount of content that is aimed at the game master. So that is certainly a bonus. And it looks as if a lot of this is just Really concise information, a lot of bullet points throughout. So, Persona Generation. This game involves you having a fraught relationship with the GM of your old game group. The GM will play the persona of the GM. Each player gets to decide the details of this relationship. Each player should select a role. The friend, the GM's best friend. The loved, the one the GM loved. The bully, the one who bullied the GM. The bullied, the one the GM bullied. And the pitied, the one the GM looked down on. Okay, that's kind of odd. The game involves you having a fraught relationship with the GM of your old game group. Is this a fictional thing? So, because remember, these are players of a role-playing game who get transported into a fantasy world. So are they talking about their old game master before their new game master? It's just, I don't know. Kevin King says several White Wolf supplements encourage players to go dark emotionally and psychologically. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this section here. So here we have video nasty. Oh, maybe these are just different types of campaigns. Let's take a look real quick. No, maybe not. Just jumping back. Yeah, I guess they are. They're different types of campaigns. So let's take a peek. I'm not going to look at all of them, but that's not it. Okay. So here we've got Total Party Kill. And then we have Video Nasty. You were all part of an independent video maker collective, but things went south in your project, a low-budget horror movie, never came to fruition. Now, after agreeing to play a strange game with an old colleague, you find yourselves trapped in the world of the film, playing the monstrous antagonists. Will you fight your way back to reality or reign in hell as kings? And that's, I guess, all of this information. There's a little nod to it, I would take a guess. We have Conquest. We all used to work together and created a successful indie comic. It got optioned by a film studio, but never made. With bitterness and estrangement between us, we gathered together at a comic convention to play a role-playing game for old time's sake. And then we get some content warnings. Ooh! It's like, I don't know, it should be a content warning on the whole thing, right? It's sort of like, hey, you better be emotionally up for this. So we have, do you remember the first time we killed a kobold and took its stuff? Y'all used to play fantasy role-playing games together as teenagers at school. Now, years down the line, you're all back in town for a school reunion and decided to get together to play a game for old time's sake. But do you really remember what happened back then? All right, so it looks like we've got a lot of various different types of campaigns, which I think that's pretty interesting. Kevin King says, for modern gamers, die would probably require a session 0 conversation. Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And you better have that X card ready. So we've got different spells. Oh, some appendices with some different spells. Second session prep example. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say that just taking a look at this is sort of along the lines of a role-playing game that I can tell you right now, my group would not fancy. So talking about some, I guess these are some of the role-playing games that have inspired this. Paranoia, Dungeon World and Apocalypse World, Monster Arts 2, When the Dark is Gone, not familiar with that. Legend Lords of Chaos, MERPs, yes, Middle Earth Role-Playing, Las Vegas, Fiasco. Fiasco is pretty interesting. Fiasco makes for a nice 1 session or possibly 2 session role-playing tales. For the Queen, Halo, Blades in the Dark, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd Edition, The Mountain Witch, Heart and Spire. I think that's a Rowan, Rook and Decard game. Legacy Life Among the Ruins, the Gumshoe System, and the Gauntlet, which is like Trophy Dark. So Kevin King says they've been gaming with the same crew for over 30 years, so they usually don't have any need for a session 0. So Raything says, my group would probably give it a go, but it could be too weird even for us. Flaming Heron says, I'm okay with it, but definitely not the sort of game my players would love. So Flaming Heron also points out, yeah, content seems very heavy. I'll tell you what, and I think Kevin's touching on this right now. Looks like this one would be interesting to read for him, but not necessarily interesting to play. I was going to say, I kind of get the feeling that this would be something that would be interesting for game masters to take a look at and to maybe mine some ideas from, to be able to mine some nuggets from. Anthony says, I thought everyone hated Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd Edition. I don't know. It sold pretty well for Fantasy Flight, didn't it? I don't know. Flaming Heron says, my group even struggles with somewhat adult content without it being explicit. Yeah, I usually try to shy away from any of that kind of stuff. So, all right, once again, this is Die, the role-playing game, created by Keiron Gillen, with artwork provided by Stephanie Hans. They are the creators of the comic as well. This 408-page hardcover is available now from Rowan, Rook, and Decard. Carries an MSRP of $55, or you can grab just the PDF for $25, and I will have a review of Die, the role-playing game, in the future. And we'll kind of see what kind of beats I get out of it. So, I don't know. We'll see if my impression that I had as I paged through turns out to be pretty much spot on, or if I'm way off. So we shall find out. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my recent review of Dungeons and Dragons, the Practically Complete Guide to Dragons, as well as my first look at Forbidden Lands, The Blood March from Free League Publishing. The rest of this week, tomorrow, it is back to a Wargame Wednesday. We're going to dive on in and take a look at Volume 4 in the Flying Colors series from GMT Games. It is Under the Southern Cross. That'll be on tomorrow's show. And then on Thursday, we're going to take a look at Winds of Magic for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. So got plenty on the horizon. I've got other videos cooking as well that are going to be standalone videos. All right. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, big tip of the cap, because not only do you keep me company, you also keep each other company while I'm flipping through books or going through various different board game boxes. So thank you kindly for that. Of course, I know a lot of you out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy life to watch any of the videos here on the channel. Come on. You know I appreciate this. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, I certainly hope you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.